Hi, my name's Adam. I'm going to talk to you today about involving the 1st Division Civilian Division. First, with engineer transportation or in transport officers of trackmen, civilian jobs and military jobs, coming out and putting together an approval training program for basically the trackman profession. Like, they work together in book 6 TM 671. It describes how train rehabilitation is organized into a work order. Well, first of all comes training the team. It's a proposal to delegate the approval of a training program through a civilian personnel operations center to or either with career centers with referraling center hired out to companies, to be introduced in the classroom hiring, to hold freight incorporated companies with 1st Division railers, given the contract to do this committee in the general civilian soldiers, with a supervisor or executive authority over an internship for individuals signing up, and send out payrolls through their own payroll company and a submissive male class workman hiremanship and contractable, and then certificately closed with so basically what I had there is the Civilian Personnel Operations Center, Human Resource Development Division from I think could go Eastern, to delegate of authority of a approving training management certificate guide, given a curriculum of old AIPD courses of track maintenance and track maintenance 2 with appendixes and railroad habilitation design and track management standards and maintenance of the track, referencing the jobs. The delegation of the training approval will be holding an internship due to not being an officer of this. Internship is also possible for the civilian division hirees. Internment to hold a public approved unlimited personal page to certificate with book of choice. Civilian divisions with trackmen, such as a company like CSX Management Certificates with I-opinion internment with certified. The internment resource supervisors were assigned and completion of graduates to work civilian correspondence program maintained with AKO rules and civilians personnel operations acquainted with military human resource development divisions to handle official operations between the two divisions federally with an IG training guide. This is may or organized be seldomly distant estates from all over the continental United States. Internment can teach and hold on delegation of authority of local alliance through Geneva invented interventions to delegate the authority of our training along the human resource development and dented affiliated appendixes to the association with the AAR and local lines in Florida and federal loanmanship cities, to halls in work-study programs and scholarship ailments of the Department of Defense deployments, if should the occasion arise in the personnel with VA give us a leader to supervise and elect handful oath or 1 cent and handful oath pledges to the railroad with credits to be holding in both divisions of AIPC correspondence and professional. They provide the ride and lunch, the rail through and out. Railroad rules and regulations for the training program, for the teaching references, Federal Acquisition Regulated, Department of Transportation, ideals, the U.S. Army Civilian Human Resource Agency, USACHAR, rules and regulations, AKO regulations, and similar correspondence programs, an IGG teacher, the Teaching Training Guide for Inspector General School, U.S. Army, trustable Florida Public Commission, and Department of Defense. The voluntary educational programs, the military personnel and management information systems. Personally have a look at it. This is Department of Defense Instruction number 1322.9, October 16th, 1995. Proposal of this following rules and regulations of this form. Number of course enrollments, course completions, cost of tuition, contracts, participation, service members, military strength, an annual report on a long LLTD program, because number of the personnel is proceedingly small. Following around headquarters, civilian education technicians, administrative personnel, headquarters personnel, a counselor, Army official, approximated appropriate funds, another educational specialist, contractable services for payouts, payrolls, possibly community MLS, military leadership classes with a JROTC, in-days, Dantes, I also got here DOD 1079, internment, discernment, DOD registered affiliation, tenants, suggestions, mandatory work. We'll talk about that later. With job descriptions like rail server could be branched off. The workload assignment and work requirements upon hire or prior physical to be described, the basic descriptions will be handled out in the program. Brochures. Purpose of training, an eventful administrative art, paperwork, filing. Purpose of training is track maintenance around the United States, track build, get them qualified and enrolled in companies. The individual payoffs will come later in this talk. An individual development plan, an IDP, is through completion of credentialed courses and AKO or civilian correspondence programs, a personal enlistment to proceed in future program academic accreditations or for my own IDP training in Fort Eustis upon accommodations in the 1st Division grads. Would be similar to my goal. Purchasing guideline is a oathful pledge, voucher to give. It says hereby by the U.S. Civilian Human Resource Agency, they're given a credit card to spend $2,500. Given $25,000, mandatory spendment of $2,500. Long-term service obligation agreements, selection of employment facilities for training, service obligation agreements, an oathful pledge, a long-term training program, the success approval grads, the internment of other produce classes with loading and docking, transport officers, others, RLY, attendance to conferences, mandatory on the classroom, RLOP, training employments of higher level positions, training later development, training documentaries, mandatory training of job descriptions, welders needed, management, executive training programs after 20 internments to turn in the supervisement and with contract closeout and return of fees of costs include costs, paperwork. Do we have academic degrees? Welding, ideals, already trained will be first most looked at person. AKO listed training regulations, Department of Defense instructions with the voluntary educational things, educational personal management, their regulations and guidelines, IG teaching and guidelines, fine with that, and company guidelines and AAR to the guidelines, or AREMA. Training sponsored for foreign government and organizations, AAR, FED, ADR, OFF websites, Kids Corners, looking in, I don't know, share with First Division generation. Restricted training contained in public law, machine operation, goes back to the physical They will be handled by the VID and the VID00120. We need track workers, but there's possible disability advantage for yourself as long as you can find it in the feds. Advanced payment of training expenses with loan to success grads and add on a card. Authorization premium pay, overtime for training. Mandatory 20 would break $2,500, given $25,000. Rolling stocks to transfer DOD. Payment of book reinforcements personnel. 50 in physical. 50 in physical. $50 in a physical. Receipts for award items in value in connection with training vested in overall credential implemented employment, contract deployment, participation in civilian training. All but supervisors or team leaders, upon track demand, they do the payroll and return the allotted money. And military participation in civilian training, AKO, DDD, AIPD, AKO, IG, Veteran Committee, ROTC, MIL, non-appropriate funded employees, MIL division except grad allotted supervisors with internment to the CP, student educational employment programs, the S-STEP employees, following the rest of the CPAPC table of context, we move on to a training approval checklist. Given managers training responsibility. Oh shit. I'm out of work.